Good morning. Happy Growth and Grace Day. This morning, we're diving in. We're going to talk about the value of vacuuming. And here's why we're talking about this, because I know that's like super random. And what is the value in vacuuming besides it makes your home clean and nice? But there is value in vacuuming, and I want to share it with you because yesterday I was prepping to host my Connect group, and so I was vacuuming my house, and I had this thought yesterday. So the initial first thought I had was, as I was vacuuming, I was like thinking of some people I know who have house cleaners, like they hire someone to come clean their house. And if you didn't know this about me, I used to do that for a living. I used to clean houses when I was in college, and I have seen all sorts of stuff. I've seen all sorts of different homes, all sorts of different lifestyles of people who hire house cleaners. And it's super interesting to know all the different things that people will invest in, and then looking in their house and you're like, wow, that's odd that this is what you're choosing to invest in when you don't seem to care about other things, but you really care about having a clean house. It's so interesting, and all different types of people. So that was a side note. But the first thought that I was having, because then a very specific person popped to mind, and I thought, I wonder when the last time was that they vacuumed their house. Like, I wonder when that was, because they've had a house cleaner, and I don't know if they ever even did that. Like, they're married, so I don't know if their spouse does that. And it was this whole thing, and I found myself immediately having two very different thoughts to this. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting that it's me, it's the same person having the same thought of, I wonder when so-and-so last vacuumed their house. And yet my mind went two different ways with it. And so I'm sharing this, and I'll share those two different ways with you because I want to highlight how powerful our thoughts are and how instantly we can create our reality, and how quickly we can let things spin out of control depending on which thought process we follow, or how quickly we can build strength and build confidence, again, depending on which thought process we follow. So the first thought process, like one of the ones that I had was, oh my gosh, I bet they don't even remember what it's like to manage a household and be the only person alone, like cleaning, paying the bills, being in charge of income, cooking, grocery shopping, all the stuff. I bet they don't even remember what that's like, because they have help and they have people who do that for them. So that was one thought. I'm just being super transparent. Like, I had all those thoughts rush through my head. The second thought I had was admiration. Like, dang, I'm impressed. They have figured out a way to run their life and be able to delegate all of these things out so they can focus on things that they love doing, focus on being with people they love, focus on, building business, focus on things that they excel at and that they enjoy, and not cleaning their house. And so then I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is what I want to explore more. So I started going down these thoughts of like, okay, I wonder, when was it? They've had a house cleaner for a while. So what was it that finally had them say, okay, I want to bring on a house cleaner. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm ready to delegate that out. Where were they at in their business when they decided to do that? Was it ever a stretch financially for them? Or was it something that, they had plenty of money and it was just like another thing that they could just pay for? And I was thinking through all these things, and I haven't had this conversation with this person to have the answers to all of these ponderings yet. I just had this yesterday. But it was so interesting to see how quickly my mind went into completely different directions. And we do this all the time with other people. We think so much, and we ponder, and we come up with all these like, well, maybe it's this and maybe it's this. And then we never have the actual conversation with someone to find out, what was the scenario? Like, when was the last time you vacuumed your house, and what did that look like to start delegating that out? And so I bring this up because we oftentimes have these thoughts subconsciously. So it was interesting to me that yesterday it popped actually to my consciousness, where I really recognized, wow, I'm having these thoughts about this other person, and was able to capture them. And so what I'm what I'm encouraging and what I would love is, as we go about our day, is to start recognizing those thoughts that we're having about other people, whether it's a thought of admiration or whether it's a thought of judgment, whether it's, wow, they really messed that one up. I would have handled that super differently, and my way would have been the right way. Because let's be honest, I think a lot of us have had those thoughts. Or whether it's, okay, wow, they have something totally figured out. Like, what can I shift? What can I do differently in my life to step into that? Because I like what they're up to. I admire them. And it's clear that something they're doing is working really well. So and something I'm doing is not working because I'm not experiencing what they're experiencing. Like, I'm not thriving in the way that they're thriving and I'd like to be. So what can I shift? What are they doing that I could do? And what I love about this, just awareness around our thoughts, is that, like I said, I mean, we can so instantly create or destroy our own realities depending on which train of thought we follow. And for a long time, I followed the judgment train. Like, I was on that train. I was going wherever that train was going. I was with it. I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, they probably don't even know what it's like. They wouldn't even know how to start a vacuum. They wouldn't know how to turn it on because they don't even do that, because they don't even like have to do any of that kind of stuff anymore. Like, and I was all of a sudden putting them up on this big pedestal. Like, they're so far out of reach and they're so disconnected from the reality that I'm living. They don't even understand me. And I say all of this with a big eye roll, because the more conversations that I have with people I admire and I look up to, and I realize they have all, without question, without fail, they have all gone through some stuff. They have overcome some serious roadblocks and some serious battles, and they all rose to the occasion, and they took on the challenge and they overcame it. And so when I look back through all of those years I spent judging instead of admiring and learning from, because when you're in judgment mode, you're like, that person can't do anything right. There's nothing they can do that will ever get your applause or will ever get your nod of approval, because you have this tinge and you're looking at them through this filter of judgment of, they messed up, they're not doing it right, or they're so much disconnected from this reality because they're just way better than everyone and they think they're just the bee's knees. And even if none of that's true, like, when you have that filter on someone, you can't see what they're doing well. You can't appreciate it because you don't recognize that they're doing something well, because you're judging them for exactly that thing that they're doing well. So now that I'm through that phase, and I just shared with you, I literally just had this judgmental thought yesterday. So I'm not like above this or beyond this. I'm just aware of it now. Now that I'm aware of it, I can actually use that to drive my admiration, because anytime something triggers you or brings up like a reaction, there's something there to explore. There's something internally with you that has experienced that before, maybe hasn't healed from it, or there's some jealousy there because you really actually would like to enjoy the lifestyle that they're enjoying, but you don't know how to get there yet, or you don't feel worthy of it, or you don't feel capable of it. And so your first reaction is like to push it away and subconsciously kind of like pretend like you don't want it. So you come up with excuses as to why that's not for you. So you don't have to actually take on the work of moving through and healing through those old wounds to be able to step into that lifestyle. Is it making sense? So what I love about that awareness now is anytime I feel those kind of judgmental thoughts come up, I can look at it and I can shift it and say, okay, there's something there, like something triggered me, something came up for me. What is it about them that I actually admire? Like, I'm recognizing that the judgment is usually more of a jealousy or of a, man, they're up to something, or they're like, they have the gusto that I wish that I had, or they have the boldness, or there's something they're doing that I'm going, man, I wish I was brave enough to do that. And that wishing and hoping and just sort of keeping it, it's you keeping that thing at an arm's distance, because it's deciding that you don't have the braveness to do the thing. You don't have that courage because you're saying, man, I wish I had the courage to do that, but I don't, so I can't. It's that mindset. So when you recognize the judgment that you're having against someone, you can turn it into the admiration of like, man, okay, they've got some courage that I like. What is it about them? Like, what has me feel like they have courage? What is it? Is it their posture? Is it the way they speak? Is it the words they're using? Is it the way that they are with people? Like, what are these pieces that play into why I admire them? And what of those pieces can I begin to implement in my own life? And it's not to be a copycat version of them. It's not to turn into them. It's very much to start recognizing, like, I have that within me. If you admire something in someone, it's because it's something you actually do have, and maybe you haven't unlocked it yet. Maybe you haven't fully stepped into it yet. So if I look at someone and admire their tenacity, admire their courage, admire the boldness and the braveness they live with, then, that must mean that I have tenacity and courage and boldness that I can live with too, and I simply haven't stepped into it. So I love that we can choose how we interpret things. And like those thoughts were just immediate, instant thoughts. They weren't like, okay, I'm going to try to think of how I could think of these two different ways. Those thoughts were instant. My choice comes in when I decide which thought pattern am I going to follow, which thought pattern am I going to allow, and which one am I going to start really thinking into and pondering into and really exploring. Because if I go into judgment and I really dive into that and I start exploring that, that takes me down a very dark, twisted, unhappy path that keeps me at an arm's distance from everyone. It keeps me in my comfort zone. I think that's the biggest pitfall of it, is it keeps you in your comfort zone, because you're not choosing to grow through, you're not choosing to heal from old wounds. And it takes work. It takes intention. It takes getting really, really, really uncomfortable. So if you find that you're just living in judgment and letting other people, well, they're just going to do it that way, I guess, and not choosing to recognize what it is in them you're admiring, you're doing yourself a disservice. So my encouragement, my recommendation to you, if I were to tell you to do it one way or the other, I would say absolutely go down the path of admiration. Start looking at what you admire in them. Start recognizing it. Let them know what you admire in them. Like, actually tell them what you admire in them. And this isn't to go down the path of turning them into your idol. This isn't to put them on a pedestal and be like, oh my gosh, I admire you so much, and you're just the most amazing person in the world, and here's all the things I admire about you, and you're way up here and I'm way down here, this piddly little thing. It's literally to help you unlock things within yourself and to help you start stepping into skill sets and qualities that you already have within, that you just haven't fully made use of yet. So start looking at people with admiration. Start recognizing when you're having those thoughts. And when you have those thoughts of judgment, I'm just going to give out one more side note to this. When you have a thought of judgment, there are going to be things that you look at, or you're watching people live out their life. There are totally going to be things that they're doing that you don't agree with. So I'm not saying that when you have that initial like, wow, that's super not a life choice I would make. I'm not saying you need to change and decide like, well, here's what I admire about them, so yeah, I guess I would make that life choice after all. No, this isn't about changing your like core beliefs. It's literally recognizing like maybe you don't agree with something that someone is saying from a very public platform. Maybe you completely disagree with what they're sharing from a public platform. But what you can admire about them is that they have the courage and the boldness to speak about what they believe with conviction. It doesn't mean you agree with what they believe, but you can still admire the fact that they can speak with confidence and the fact that they can share what they believe with such a knowing that they believe it. So take what works for you. Don't feel like you have to then change into that person, or you have to agree with everything that person does. I don't agree with everything that my best mentors do. But there's enough things about them that I agree with, and there's enough things about them that I admire that I'm still wanting to glean from them and learn from them, even if there's things that they might do or say or handle situations where I'm like, I think I would have done that differently. That's fine. We're different people. So don't turn yourself into a cookie cutter copy of someone, but recognize when you have those thoughts and start shifting from that judgment into that admiration, because it's so valuable and it's going to keep you in such a clean mental space to not have all that clutter of judgment and, making someone else wrong for how they're living, or keeping yourself in your comfort zone by deciding that's just for them, that's not for me. So with all of that, choose which path you're going to go down, choose which thoughts you're going to entertain. The thoughts themselves might come instantly, but you don't have to entertain them, and you don't have to walk down that ugly, twisted path of judgment. So use this day to start recognizing when you're having those thoughts and start shifting into, all right, what is it about this person? Something came up for me. What do I admire about them? And then let them know, because what a gift. How cool to let someone know what you appreciate about them. So with that, we're going to sign off. We will see you next week, every Thursday, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, for another episode of Growth and Grace. Bye for now.